Conventions are about much more than just politicians. In fact, some of the most memorable moments can turn on real people, civilians who are not full-time polls or cultural leaders, which is why Democrats are going back to a popular convention performer. John Legend is in the rare EGOT club, winner of an Emmy, Oscar, Tony, and then the many Grammys. Meanwhile, on policy and civil rights, Legend has applied both his work and his public voice to justice reform. For many years, he was involved in this. That's before this summer's protest reminded some Americans of systemic issues in policing and criminal justice. And then politically, Democrats know both Legend and his wife, well-known personality Chrissy Teigen, as strong Obama allies. Back before, when the then senator was out on the campaign trail, it was Legend performing, remember this, Yes We Can, as the finale to that huge outdoor 2008 DNC. And in the Trump era, the couple's advocacy has upset this president, earning Twitter tirades that I'm not going to repeat here. Many do say, though, that Teigen won the last round of trash talk on that medium. Now, Legend is back on the big stage, as we've mentioned tonight, for Joe Biden. He just had the honor of closing out night 2 of the convention with a performance of his song, Never Break.
The world is dangerous, throw it all at us. There's nothing we cannot take. We will never break. We will never break. Build on a foundation strong enough to stay.
The award-winning musician and DNC performer John Legend joins us live now, making his debut on The Beat. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Ari, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad that we got to hear some more of my song on MSNBC because I heard through the grapevine that I was cut off last night.
Do you want to speak on that?
I don't know. I don't think it was your decision, Ari, but it was a decision made by somebody at one of my favorite channels on the television. I was so hurt.
I hear you and I feel you, and your inference, you know, we don't discuss certain internal policies, but your inference about me as a John Legend fan is probably on the right track. Let's get into it, because here you are on night 3 and you are on MSNBC, and I want to read a few of the lines just for you to walk us through why you picked this, what you're saying to us, because in that same song that you chose, you say, I'm not worried about us, and I've never been. No matter what may come our way, we will never break. John.
Well, it's a song about resilience. It's a song about hope. And it's a song about the power of love to get us through tough times. And I'm an optimistic person by nature. And I know America's going through an extremely tough time right now. But I really do believe that we have it within us to get through this together. We have to make the right choices. We have to do the right things. But I believe we can do it, and that's really what that song says.
Yeah, and we saw and felt the way you set it up, and the socially distanced choir, and some of your other work, like a lot of artists right now, is doing what artists do, which is being raw and real and helping us all feel our way through this tough time. Let's play a little bit for folks who haven't seen your music video, Big Love. What are you sharing there? What do you want people to take from that?
Well, we shot that video right at the beginning of the time when everybody was quarantining. You know, I wrote these songs before we knew what 2020 had in store, but that song felt like it would be a good pick-me-up for people. And so we asked our fans all around the world, from 6 continents, all the ones where people can live, and we asked them to submit their videos. And they sent them in. They were dancing. They were showing love to their neighbors and their community members. And we just thought it was a celebration of love that we could all use. And it's one of my favorite videos I've made because it really just shows so much love and community across the world.
I'm curious, as someone who is so involved in this political space and who has fans and followers, I think people understand that you have people who look to you, and you've given a lot of thought to your voice. What do you say to people who honestly, for whatever reason, say Joe Biden wasn't their first or second choice in this primary? Maybe they are disinclined to Donald Trump, but they're not yet enthused about him. What do you say?
Well, I supported Elizabeth Warren in the primary, and she didn't win. Joe Biden won. He was the choice of the Democratic Party. And that doesn't mean he was the choice of a few elites in the Democratic Party. He was the choice of the people in the Democratic Party. He went to South Carolina and won by a lot. He went to a bunch of other states and won by a lot. That means a bunch of people in this Democratic coalition decided that he was the best person to represent the party. He wasn't my first choice, but he's the representative for our party. And what that means, when you elect someone to represent your party, we've got to all rally around that person and say, he's got an agenda that's going to move this country forward. He's got a progressive agenda. He's worked with Elizabeth Warren's campaign. He's worked with Bernie Sanders' campaign. He's brought in some of their best ideas and is incorporating them into his platform. And the alternative is to have 4 more years of Trump. And the combination of him having a great platform that's incorporated a lot of these progressive ideas and the alternative that Trump could wreak havoc on this nation with 4 more years of power and his perceived impunity after all the crimes and missteps he's committed, that would be just a terrible decision. So I think between the pluses of picking Biden and the minuses of allowing 4 more years of Trump, I think it's a very clear, easy decision for anyone who's progressive to make.
Well, now let's get into the other side. I mentioned some of the public battles between Trump and you and, frankly, your family, and we know that's how he does. But on the policy side, which I just happen to know, and a lot of people know, you care a lot about this and justice reform. Next week, Donald Trump is going to feature at his convention Alice Johnson. And for folks who don't remember, here's how they've been touting her. They bought a whole Super Bowl ad about this case. Take a look.
Start over. This is the greatest day of my life. My heart is just bursting with gratitude. I want to thank President Donald John Trump.
And she's speaking next week. What do you say to the president and his allies who point to her as a case of someone that he helped and that she's going to be effectively making the case for his reelection next week?
Well, I have so much respect for Alice and all that she's been through in our criminal justice system. There are so many people who've been locked up for far too long. And anytime any one of those folks can become free and go back to their families, I think it's a cause for celebration. But you have to weigh the entire record of a president when you're deciding to reelect them and give them another 4 years in control. And part of Donald Trump's record is releasing a certain number of prisoners last year. However, another part of his record is that 170,000 people have died from COVID-19 under his watch. Another part of his record is that he said there were good people on both sides when Nazis and hate mongers were marching through Charlottesville. Another part of his record is he's been a bigot his entire career, a misogynist his entire career. And so when you weigh the good and the bad of Donald Trump, the bad far outweighs the good.
Yeah, it's an interesting and very thoughtful response, given that we expect the same way they did the Super Bowl, that's going to be a whole thing when they feature that next week. And as you mentioned, there's individual cases and then there's writ large. Most people have not gotten the, go ahead. I was just going to say, have not gotten the leniency under this Barr Justice Department that she got. Go ahead, sir.
Well, if they were going to testify against President Trump, they got leniency. So he was very specific about the way he used leniency to buy off people's silence. But anyway, what I think most people should take from this whole experience with the First Step Act is that the federal government has very little control over how the criminal justice system is run. And so the key when we want criminal justice reform is to pay attention to state and local politics. We have to elect progressive DAs in our communities. We have to make sure we have governors and state legislatures that are passing laws that will be reform-minded, because most of the prisoners and people who are in jail right now are there because of state and county laws. And so folks need to be paying attention to all of that. Federal stuff matters, but most of the action when it comes to criminal justice reform and most of the impact is on the local and state level.
So important what you say. Big facts, because a lot of that is you got to ask everyone running for governor and state legislature if you care about these issues in your state, about those issues. John Legend.
And your district attorneys. District attorneys are huge.
And, of course, your local DAs. John Legend, let me put it down like this. As you referenced in the beginning of the interview, you are talking to a fan as well as a journalist, so I'm so glad you came on. I hope you come back. And let me tell everyone the new album is Bigger Love.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good luck. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.